Always looking for cool things. Read that little caption on top if you can. Now, had I known, this is something that actually appeared on a Typhoon. Had I known about this, I would have put that on the nose of the plane. I just located this little information today. Anyway, just one of the cute little things here. Another thing we could have put on is some kills. I don't know if that's totally scaled to this plane anyway. That's the whole point. You got to know this stuff before you finish the model. Anyway, just one of those guys we missed out on. Joe Adamusco gave me his whole collection as he's moving to his new shop soon. Gave me his whole collection of Warbird magazines and books, and I have a pile of them. Can't even pick the pile up. I'm going to keep them for reference for the future, but we have some really nice stuff. Joe, I appreciate it a whole lot. I always love sitting around reading these magazines at night, especially when you think of the quality of stuff that's on television. Anyway, what we're looking for, and we're going to find some eventually, we're starting to gather our memorabilia and data for our B-25. That might be part of it right there. I'm not sure. Anyway, we're inspired. We're ready to roll. One's for you, Gerald Champ. Get that Mustang done. I'm going to work on your back plate this week. That time of year that I think is so special for all of us here on the East Coast. The birds have returned from where they returned from having a vacation in Florida. Karen and I spent the whole weekend putting in our annuals and perennials and getting our picnic area ready. We're going to have company in the next couple of weeks coming up from North Carolina and Georgia. We've tried to get the house ready for them, and later on in the summer we're going to have Don Dixon here. So Karen, of course, tries to put her best foot forward on all of these decorating projects. And I am the consummate slave. I do what I'm told, I keep my mouth shut, I pay the bill. And as we speak, if you just notice, I have one of my customers here. As I'm sitting out here sanding props, I have good company. Anyway, it's a great place to hang out in the summer. You can hear the birds kinkling and chackling and whatever. And of course, the best thing is we have plenty of videos to watch, plenty of flights. We've already got plenty of flying on the Typhoon, and plenty of projects to work on in the shop here. Life always has a good saying, and it's a saying I want to pass on to you. He says, you know, windy, there's some days it's good to be windy, and some days it's really tough being windy. Come on, guys. Today looks like it'll be good. We have some props to work on, some fish to feed, and usually it doesn't take them long to get hungry. And if you've been with us subscribing to videos for a long time, you know one of the joys I have out of life is raising fish. I have about 60 babies in here. I don't know if we're going to be able to see them, but to complement my work in the area of model aviation, Karen and I, this is one of our pet projects, is every year we put in incredible, look, there's our pet dove over there, an incredible amount of time into gardening, sprucing everything up so that we can share it with our friends when it's time for them to visit us. And we'll be having some visitors later this week coming down from New York State. But I'll tell you, it's a special place to work on your plane, work on your props. A couple of days of flying the Zingers, and And we've been real happy so far with, we painted up 3 of them, in fact. The Raider Zinger 14.5 has been one of the props we're working with. We're going to be working with APC, and we have the prop company EAT in England going to make us some props. All of those should be due within the next week or 8-10 days. You may think, why even bother painting a prop? Well, it's the details in life. Why bother planting a flower? Why bother getting your hair cut? Why bother using deodorant? It's the details that always seem to make life just a little more enjoyable. Having a pet turtle that you can listen to the water run when you're out here in the morning having your coffee. And we've had our coffee, we fed the fish, we're ready to get down the shop and start doing an honest day's work for a dishonest dollar. One of the things I always take a lot of pride in my own case, because I'm a confirmed workaholic and I work a lot of hours, I always like to get the most back for my hours invested. Now, one of the things you can see, I've already painted props today. Painting props, it would always be the first thing of the day because that paint will be drying now while I'm working. I wouldn't want to do that at the end of the day. I want to do that so I can maybe even get a second coat on this afternoon. The other thing too is I try to lay up all my molds early in the morning. I just try to get all that kind of work into the background as soon as possible. And here we are, a good case for making a mold. Here we are, we're only about not even a month away from doing this. This is a 3.5-inch back plate for Al Raby's Millennium Mustang. And we already have somebody that's building it, Gerald Champ, and already going to be able to take advantage of the fact that we've already made up a mold for this. And that we can make a carbon fiber backplate that's about half of the weight of the aluminum and plenty strong, maybe even stronger. I don't know. You'd have to break one to see. But now that we have this mold, and of course for every mold that we ever make, it adds to the hobby in general the ability for people to enjoy this part. Now let's suppose that we didn't have this mold. Well, Gerald would have to basically make the mold again. First off, Al would have had to make it. Then somebody else, maybe Al's going to sell plans and there'll be hundreds of these available. Now, the only problem with this mold, because it's so big, it eats up a lot of material. But it's irrelevant. When you have a plane that's already built and you need to get an ounce out of the nose or some amount out of the nose, or you just want to make the plane lighter, getting an ounce out of the plane is a significant thing. We're also going to, in the very near future, I have some Aero Products Randy Smith spinners that I want to fit up for the Typhoon as a choice. So I have trim choices. See, the thing is, I always like to have all the choices. I like to make up my mind after I test everything. I don't like to just be, oh, I heard this through the grapevine that, this is great, or this is great, or that, or this is better than sliced bread. Well, every time I want to taste the sliced bread myself. Now, because we've already done one of these, I knew how many of these little pieces to cut out. And this is a post-cure resin, of course. It's going to have to be post-cured. I won't put the whole thing on tape because it's pretty redundant. We've already got it on tape. But the point is, if you're going to try to get the most out of your modeling hours, and a lot of people don't care, I understand, they're retired. But in my case, you can see I have a backyard to work on. I have a family. And I really love spending time with them at the end of the day when all the work is done. A lot of times the work doesn't get done, and I have to basically tough it out down here, but I really never want to trade away my family time. I want the modeling time and the work time to be an entity unto itself. And to do that, I've found nothing better than to just really be efficient about how you manage your time. Don't waste any time. Don't just do something, without figuring out this could be drying. Now this mold will be drying while we go on to the next project. The paint will be drying. I'm sure we'll get another coat of clear on that this afternoon. May even get some more props made, whatever, depending on what comes in the day's mail. But when you're aware of time management, it seems like in essence you can double or triple the amount of things you can get done with no extra effort. It's a significant thing a lot of people overlook. This dries under a piece of glass and a sheet of Teflon. And that's got to dry overnight, then get post-cured, and then get trimmed and polished. And while we have the the EPON mixed, we may as well make up the little bit of material we have left over. We'll make up some back plates for the Randy Smith Aerospin is another one of our products. Today, the first thing I did when I came down to shop is get Gerald Shamp's back plate out of the mold, trim it off and polish it a little bit, and I think he will be ready. Just another nice little part. It'll go on his Millennium Mustang. I just have to post-cure it yet. That'll be kind of, wish my whole life was as easy as that. Anyway. I'm real happy, and I expect there'll be other people building these Mustangs, the Millennium Mustang. Al Raby certainly has done a nice job of making it, doing that semi-scale thing that he does so well. Yeah, it's got a nice finish on it. And Jerry, we want to see some pictures of this Mustang as you're building it. Now today in the mail, got the first real prototype of what is now the Cardinal Evolution, a 40-size built-up fuselage ship. It complements the Brodak Profile model. It's very similar, but this is an all built-up fuselage. A little bit more elaborate building than a Profile. Certainly one of the things we're going to ultimately soon make up as soon as we get a plug made, a dedicated composite cowl that'll make this real nice. The wheel pants that we already make fit right on here. The carbon fiber gear we make fit right on here. Another thing I'm suggesting that the first person that builds this plane, and that probably is going to be Elliott Scott. He's already got one of these built. The McBrides have two of them. Well, what we want to do is make a carbon fiber crutch mold too, so we can supply all those parts in carbon fiber. By the way, these plans are now available right off of my website. Just go up to the website. Elliott Scott did the work on them, and they are really nice. They have a lot of little detail drawings, very, very nicely done, and very accurate. And of course, all of the ribs are available, laser cut, right off the website. And it's really an attractive mid-size model. A great power choice would be a Sato 30 maybe. Not sure. Or 56 if you build it heavy. Anyway, we'll have more on that. There are several under construction right now from Elliott's plans. It'll be very interesting to see how that pans out in the near future. And it donated all the 14.5 rev-ups to our cause. And I still have some of you. I think I saw 4 or 5 of them at least.
Oh yeah?
Mike's been breaking one a flight though. Mike is rough on props.
Did you get any from Finley Hobbies?
Yes, Finley's has them too.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
I got some 15.5s too.
Cool.
He's been gracious enough to show us this is the plane for next year?
Well, it was going to be for this year, but it ain't quite ready yet, so
okay.
This will be done later on.
Let's see how the carbon fiber worked out, because Grigsby and these guys have all kind of carbon fiber inventions. We're trying to share the information. Now, you laminated that to 1/4-inch balsa, is that what you did?
Actually, that's basswood around the edges.
Okay.
In the middle is the Roacell foam.
Okay. That's what Grigsby was using, Roacell foam.
Yeah. And this little piece.
Oh, I see. Yeah, you got it in the middle.
That's Roacell foam there, too.
Okay. Yeah. And the little tank hold downs, that's cute. Turn it up to the sun so you can see the tank holder. Yeah, that's... I know Grigsby sent me some Roacell, in fact. Yeah, you can see how he's got the tank hold downs there. Carbon fiber. It looks to me like it's either 6 or 4 ounce or 5 ounce. That's 5 ounce maybe. This is for the glow plug starter?
Yeah, the glow driver.
Yeah, I wish I had that on the Typhoon. It's a pain getting that glow plug on. Yeah. And you'll get your hand near the prop. That's another nice thing.
Yeah, this is
That's real nice, yeah.
I wrote a little bit about how to do that.
Yep.
Stunt news.
2 dowels.
Yeah.
That's
you go right into the doubler, and then you sand it down, and then you can put a bolt or a screw or something on there. And
right. And the only downside is that you see this on the...
Yeah, it's got a little silver deal behind it there.
Yeah, but so what?
Yeah.
Your planes are neat enough. Everybody's busy looking at the inclines and stuff anyway.
Nobody noticed that before. And I had to hollow this guy out. My previous previous boxed tank.
Yeah. Well, that's
didn't
really
do
nice
that.
construction. I like, as always. And 4 screws.
Shoulder screws.
Okay.
So this actually becomes a structural member here. It's a
Yeah, of
fully
course.
completed box. So it won't twist or do anything like that.
That's real nice.
It's about an ounce.
What are the motor mounts? Normal motor mounts, or are they laid on their side? I didn't see how you did the motor mounts.
They're normal motor mounts.
1/2 inch square, 5/8, 3/8.
Well, if I pull this little foam piece out, I think you can. Come on out there. I don't want
That nice workmanship, Rich?
Very nice.
That is nice craftsmanship. I'll tell you, when Noel retires, I think what we should do is we should run up his house, kidnap him, make him
him a
build.
slave.
Yeah. No, we only feed him when we like the work he does.
Turn him into a slave. I said that.
Yeah.
The motor mounts are tapered. They go through there.
Okay, I didn't see. Oh, you have them tapered back.
But the material is not maple, right?
The motor mounts are maple. Yeah, that's maple.
Are they maple?
Yeah, it's maple. It's
Yeah.
just they're just sandwiched between 2 layers of this carbon fiber.
Yeah.
This stuff comes from aerospace. They sell this already laminated.
Okay, now what did you use to hold that to the motor mounts?
Epoxy.
Okay, epoxy.
Now, before I'm done, this is all going to have to be sealed with a finishing resin, because if you
Yeah.
hold this stuff up to the light, you can see
Oh, yeah.
little holes in there. You know?
Yep.
You see that?
Yes. Yeah, you couldn't make a gas tank out of it, is what you're saying. A real low-fill gas tank.
You could. You'd have to seal it.
Yeah.
Now, this piece right here, originally the idea was that I was going to make a roll of cell foam block to go around the front of the wing. This would be all filled with roll of cell foam.
I got a neat idea for you. I already
And
tried
this
it.
ties onto it.
You know, go to Home Depot and get that foam that fills in all the cracks
The
and crevices.
urethane, yeah.
And right on the nose, I was going to do that with the Typhoon, drill just a hole big enough for the cap and hit it, and because it expands.
Yeah.
And it's strong. When it's done, you can stick a screwdriver in it. You can't get it out.
Huh? Did
I mean,
do
you
it?
tear it apart. No. I wanted you to do it. That's what I'm paying you for. Why should I wreck a good plane when I got you around?
It's an idea.
Yeah, look, it's nice. It's beautiful.
That is nice.
But try twisting it. It's pretty sturdy.
No, I wouldn't do that, but I
Now, did you weigh this whole assembly against, like, the traditional one to get some idea of how much lighter it is, or how much heavier, or?
It's about an ounce lighter than last year.
Okay. Well, it's worth doing it then.
Now, what kind of...
Now, the only problem with this, Noel, is as you get this lighter and lighter, the nose has to get longer and longer. Eventually, there's a point of diminishing returns.
No, it's not.
You're going to have a collie here pretty soon.
No, you just got to build a lighter tail.
Yeah, but that light
Light the nose, light the tail. All balances out.
Yeah.
Now, how did you get these angles the way you did?
Gee,
You have any special tooling, or?
well, I think actually I started out and I cut the front piece. I figured the angle had to be at, and I glued it on, and then I just
Then this
glued on.
piece second.
Yeah, and then just
put the side.
Yeah, that's really nice, though. Look at the workmanship. I think this is neat. I like that. Now, you're going to leave this piece on?
If I fill it with foam blocks here, that will glue the foam.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll take it off. I don't know. It doesn't sound like it's a good idea right now.
You got any extra of this stuff?
I sent you some.
Yeah, I mean enough to do a plane. You sent me a postage stamp of it. You got any scraps, little pieces? I just want to...
Cost $600.
Yeah, everything carbon fiber costs $600. You could make money out of it. It wouldn't even be worth making it.
Yeah.
Nice workmanship.
Beautiful.
What is this in the back now? Let me see how you got the motor mounts. What is that little foam in between?
Well, that's why I asked if they were maple, because I saw that.
He doesn't have foam motor mounts in here.
I saw
If you look,
they seem to be
I
laminated.
did the same thing on Mother Supercastles. This plane was originally designed for a Tiger 60 with half-inch beam motor mounts.
Okay.
And the engine was wider and the mounts were wider. So when I built the thing for a smaller engine and smaller motor mounts, basically I kept the fuselage the same width. The motor mounts came in. The earlier versions, I had a filler here. It was like balsa around the outside of the motor mount, and then plywood facing it top and bottom. So basically, now it's
Because Rich's pacemaker just fell on the floor.
just leave it on the table.
Yeah, Jacobone.
not me. He's the one that flipped it over.
No, I'm trying to learn something here. Give me a
But
break.
basically now the motor mounts are sandwiched between a layer of carbon fiber, top and bottom, and that goes out to the fuse sides.
Okay.
And it's foamed in between those two layers.
Yeah. That's nice workmanship.
It is.
Boy, oh boy, that's
Very
beautiful.
nice. Yeah, and I beefed up the
Yeah.
mount there.
You steamed it?
But you understand, if you, I mean, there's a part of this you got to understand that probably Keller doesn't understand yet. If he could make this piece weigh nothing, what would it mean? What it would mean is the nose would have to get a lot longer. So there's a point of, it's like going on a diet by cutting your toes off.
The tail-
Eventually there's a point of no
No, it means the
return.
tail's got to get lighter.
And if he can build a 1 ounce tail, then I'll be impressed.
No, these are molded.
Yeah, and it's got the curve, by the way, you can notice that. It's got the curve already in it. I like that.
Yeah, it's molded. Basically, it's just a...
And this is carbon fiber behind the nose ring? I can't see. Yeah, it's got the nose.
Well, that's a different kind of carbon fiber.
Yeah.
That's something I got for, I don't know, it's for spars for sailplanes or something. It's heavier and thicker than just a piece of light ply on the front of it.
But what tell you what, we got to chain him.
How much do you have?
Chain him to a wall and make him build for us.
How much do I have? I think it's about a
32nd? The spacing?
about a 64th.
Yeah,
I don't
I
remember
thought so.
what I did. I can adjust that. That's not a big deal.
That's beautiful.
We get the wing.
Absolutely.
That's the
Well,
challenge.
you got to drill holes in the engine or something.
Yeah.
Okay, now this is, you made this, or did Bobby make it?
This is a lost foam geo wing molded
Okay,
leading
with the
edge.
molded, Champ has a molded leading edge now too. That's nice.
This is done with a mold from Bobby Hunt. This is the third wing I've made off of that mold.
Okay, and this is a glass, you put glass down there, half ounce or what?
That's light glass cloth. That's just to beef up where the fuse is going to...
Yeah, where it attaches, yeah.
Inside, we've got carbon fiber strips running along the spar line, and then we've got a little diamond-shaped spruce spar
That holds the,
underneath there.
okay, and let's see the ball link for which you've been given full credit for the development work, but that's nice and neat. And this is one of the, tell me the name of the company again.
Central Hobbies.
Central Hobbies, okay.
Central Hobbies pusher.
Nice little, all right. One of Dan's nice little control horns.
This is one of the last windshield control horns, at least for a while.
Yeah. Well, he's got a family, you know. That stuff people think this stuff jumps out of the mold. It takes time to make it.
Yeah.
That's nice.
It's a Delrin bell crank I made myself.
Now Rich has basically the same wing in Strega. How much does this weigh right now? This is what, 8 ounces?
This weighs 7 1/4, and
7
it's got a
1/4.
half ounce of wing of tip weight.
Okay, but Rich, he didn't weigh it until he put the tissue on it and everything. It was 15 ounces, so that was a little on the heavy side. But that's Rich.
But what I do,
That's nice. The tip is nice too.
yeah,
Very nice.
if you look inside there, this is beefed up with
Right.
a little plywood brace in there. So
Does Bobby suggest doing this with the shear web, the whole thing, or not?
he says do it. He only does it part way. I do it all the way.
Okay.
Because I think I got loads out at the wingtip that I want to worry about,
Yeah.
especially with 2 ounces of tip weight out here.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I leave this part of the tip solid.
Yeah.
There's a half ounce of tip weight just from that.
Okay.
Because when I pull test, I hold the tip and I hold the fuselage. I hold the plane with the tail pointing straight up.
I never saw you do that.
I grab the side of the fuselage right here, and I grab the tip right there.
Okay.
Pull right against the side of the
Yeah.
fuselage. But I want something I can squeeze.
Yeah, you don't want to go Dunkin' Donut time.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, I like this glassing here. This is nice. See, a lot of people just go right to the 16th bib. See, my only criticism of this would be that this should have something other than a sharp point right there.
You're probably right.
Around-
Maybe I should have put that in there.
Around, no, I mean, it's only actually because I've seen them when they go to stress the wing that they have there's a stress, you know that, you're an engineer, there's a stress riser right there. This curve too would be it would look even sexy.
Yeah, well, that's the way I did it last time.
Yeah.
I might even add that on. That's a good idea.
Yeah, everything I say is a good idea.
Well,
Why would you be paying me all this money if it wasn't a good idea?
so
This is
something Glenn doesn't realize, but anybody who's built planes realizes,
Yes.
when you can put a hole in a piece of sheeting and have it that close and that small at the same time,
That's right.
How many times did you do a push rod and whack out a hole, a little bigger
This
hole?
became an open bay.
You know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly. Don't rub it in. Let's go see what Jackabone's got cooking down there. I don't know. I saw he wants me to paint his canopy on his plane. This is Noel's log of what his plane weighs, down to the 1/1,000,000 of a million grains. And I mean, there's only one difference between the way you do it and I do it, Noel. And that is, I have it in my mind.
My mind ain't that good.
Neither is mine.
But anyway, you asked
Yeah,
about
I've written it all.
you asked about the front of the fuselage.
Yeah.
The 98 plane was 6.4, so then it was...
Uh-oh, the boss is... We're caught now. Uh-oh. Oh, boy, there goes our pizza bill tonight. Here comes the boss. Now, Mr. Strager, what is it? This is the third Strager you made. Okay. You got a mask off the cockpit. He wants to do Brodak. What color? Candy apple blue?
Whatever color you have.
Is that the question, Noel? Don't I speak English? Do you want green or blue?
Blue is fine.
Okay. I will go load the paint into the gun while Mr. Tape here sits and relaxes. Hey, your decals came out nice this year.
Thank you.
Much nicer than you didn't get any wrinkles in them.
No, I worked at it.
You see his other thing, Noel? He's got all wrinkles and all. It looks like wallpaper or something. Now, it looks nice, Rich. It looks good.
Thank you. I made mistakes, but...
Now, you're going to try to make a scale shape, or are you going to, like, kind of invent this as you go along? That's not the shape of a real canopy, you know.
That's not it?
No. You want me to do it, or? You want to make it like an air racer. Make it like an air racer.
Well,
That's what this
How
is.
does an air racer...
Let's see how you doing there, Tiger DeStefani masking off his canopy.
Barbecue chicken, barbecued ribs, and it's on Route 9. Route 9.
Anyway, working on models is tough work here, isn't it, Noel? Is this a horrible place to have to work? Waterfalls, the koi you're eating out of your hand, Jackabone's doing all the work.
Birds are chirping.
Birds are chirping.
Peeps is watching.
Peeps is supervising.
And he lost his tail.
And he lost his tail. Mike calls him a Cornish hen now. And we have highly skilled technicians showing us every trick in the trade.
No.
Well, we're going to see this once it's got all the clear in it there. What do you think, Rich?
I think it looks wonderful.
What I think is you're going to pay for pizza tonight.
I think...
I see a credit card coming out at the bill time. That looks great.
I'm not saying what kind of artist.
I'm telling Martine on you. And what do you want to do to the other plane? You want to take the hinge lines or what?
You said that.
Okay. Well, you can put this one away now.
I also want to show you the
Bring the other one out.
difference of one pipe.
Is finalize the use of this little flight box that I just made. See if I need to make any changes or improvements in it. And I figure what I try to do, I have some of the painted 14 and 15 inch zingers that I have in stock. I have more painted up. I want to go through them one by one. I also want to go back and forth. One of the things I haven't done yet, I haven't done on the same day at the same time, is swap the mufflers and see if there's a gain or a loss one way or another on the mufflers. This one's a little bit lighter. It seems like both the Zinger and the Rev Up 14.5 are in the bank, and what we want to try to do is get some of the 15-inch props. And another thing we can try at some future time is take the 15 inches and cut them to 14. So we have, but we know we're real comfortable with 14. If anything, the motor seems like it's not loaded quite enough. Again, the only way I know to do this efficiently, get out to the field, especially on a day like today when the air is, it's going from dead to shifty. We're out here nice and early in the morning, and you can see, I don't know if you can get some feeling for what the environment here is. But it's supposed to get breezy later today, and that'll give us a nice little selection of flight data by the end of the day. I also have put the bushing in, the control horn, to see if I was going to like it with the controls real tight or with the controls real loose. It's real tight now. I know normally when you put the bushing in, you have to go down on the handle about 2 sizes. Take the bushing out, it tracks a lot better. Again, we'll go back and forth with that. We have the whole field to ourselves today. It looks like we may get something accomplished. I found this trope.
at least for the 91 to 72. The needle setting that you usually have the day before, when you come out in the morning and it's cool like this. Now, the last time we flew, I had a t-shirt on and it was hot. It's relatively cold now. It's about 55 degrees, in fact. It's supposed to go to 60, 65 maybe, but the needle valve only goes out maybe 1 or 2 clicks and it's fine. So normally I really don't have to spend the first day or two, the first part of the day, refamiliarizing myself with that needle setting. What I usually do is just go out. In fact, this time I'll go out 1 click and see how it feels. As it gets colder in the morning, out a click seems to be 1 or 2 clicks the most. If it really gets blazing hot in the afternoon, maybe in a click, 1 or 2. It still runs about 630 on every flight, 615 to 630. 5% GMA fuel. What I was looking to find out is if the mileage changed or anything else significant by putting on a smaller muffler. One thing about this muffler throws the oil further down onto the plane. There's almost none on the plane. When you're done with a flight, you'll see. It's almost like you didn't fly. Just the bottom of the plane needs about a half a paper towel wiped down. Again, I like the way this toolbox kind of worked out here. As opposed to carrying all the stuff loose. The starts have been pretty routine. A couple of back flips. Usually it bumps right away. When it's hot, you don't even have to back flip it. The heat of the engine burns the prime now.
finally up. Now we've got a few flights on this, and there's some significant stuff I've learned in the short time I've been here this morning. Number one, the mileage improves quite a bit at every needle setting, and I purposely went in a couple of clicks and out a couple of clicks to see. Across the board, it adds about 15 to 20 seconds to the run time. Now I don't know, I'm assuming, and I might be totally wrong, I'm assuming that what's happening is this is a more restrictive muffler because this is made for a 72, and it just keeps the motor from breathing as well as it does with the larger muffler, which is a little bit heavier. This also has the benefit of virtually no oil at all. The other one is good, this one is great. There's only oil on the plane, maybe one spot right about here, and that's it underneath. So that's a nice little, well, it's kind of free in fact. The other thing, I went through two of the painted props. I only have two of them with me, and they run exactly like the original one that wasn't painted, so even though we've taken a little bit of the pitch out of them, we didn't take enough out to make a significant difference. But what was a significant difference, and I wanted to mention this because this is something that applies to all airplanes, having that bushing in, the handle is now way too big, and you can go back and look at that flight. I've already looked at it, even from the bad angle, and you can see a lot of overturns. And what that's doing is it's making more elevated travel relative to flap travel. So when we go home today, first thing we'll do is pull that bushing out and say, well, at least we tried it both ways. Now we know, we're not just guessing. Scientific approach to everything with numbers and formulas and everything, and then there's always a way that I like to do things. It's my own personal way. I just sit out here in a parking lot for 5-6 hours changing things and grinding things and trying to make things different than they were to flight before, and that way seems to work pretty well for me. But the one consistency in the whole program is when the bushing wasn't in, it really had some flats that I couldn't believe. The flats and the part of the flight that you want to get where it'll come out of a maneuver and just lock was absolutely perfect. Now with that bushing in, and that meaning that there's now no slop in the controls, it's less good. It's still good, but it's not as good as when it was the other way. So we're definitely going to go back to having that slop, and that's on all the videos. The 1/8-inch hole, 3/32 rod, we don't even have to take the wing out of the body. I actually could do it at the field. You just pull the bottom pan off, take the set screws out. Because what will happen is you wind up shrinking the handle down, and somewhere in the pattern you lose a little bit. So I think the better of two choices here is going to be just at the end of the day, take that bushing out. Interesting day yesterday with Noel Drindak, because Noel is a believer in no slop. He sets his planes up with no slop and a tremendous overhang on the handle to compensate for not having slop in the controls. So it shows you that you can do it more than one way. This is just the way that I feel is the easier of two for most pilots. The other thing that came out of this is that box is really handy. I've been just loving having that little box, and it's about 1/3 the weight of the old red box. And there's nothing loose on the field here. It's going to be real handy having that guy for the remainder of, well, as long as we fly this season before we go to Europe. And at these flights, you'll notice that I'm not trying to do what I'll call good geometry flights. What I'm looking for are things that I can improve on the plane. I'm still not convinced that I've squeezed as much as I can out of the trim setup. But for sure, we've started with a real good, we started way ahead of where we were in years gone by with airplanes. So I just feel like I want to try all these things so that halfway through the season I say, oh, why didn't I try that? Why didn't I try that? And pretty much I'm weeding through the props, weeding through the things like the control slop. And I'm hoping by the time we get the first contest, is 2 weeks away, that we'll have this kind of dialed in for, and then we can start doing geometry flights, looking at square 8 intersections, things of that nature. I thought I'd do more than to gain some time, just to see how convenient it was. I'm going to pull the plane apart and pull that bushing out right at the field here, and I can go back and forth with my two handles and back and forth with the bushing in, bushing out, of course. But I want to see just how practical and how easy it's going to be to do that, and I think it's going to be only a matter of a few minutes. What's nice here is after a half a day of flying, there isn't even a drop of oil inside there. So now it's a question of getting the two wheel collars off, pulling that piece of copper tubing out, putting the two wheel collars back on, But we don't even have to take the cowling, the muffler, or anything off. This is a really nice system. This is something I'd like to use on a B-25, that I can get in at things without having to take the whole plane apart or take the ring out or whatever. So that part of it I've been pretty happy with. Here's the little bushing. You can see this came apart in about 3 minutes. Put the double wheel collars back, put the hatch back on. We'll be out on a flight line in about 5 minutes. Now we're going to try to get some footage from down this side. I'm just using Rich's flight to line up the camera. This ain't going to do me much good anyway. He's flying in the wrong spot. Anyway, let's see if we can get at least one. enjoyed seeing Rich get scared by those geese. The geese fly out on that field on a regular basis, boy. But again, we're going to look at the footage again from a couple of different angles. This is my little project for this afternoon while we're waiting for the mail to come in. This stuff on here. I weighed up all my spinners. I want to see. The one that's on the plane now is 36 grams. That's the 2 1/4 Dubro with the screws. We could get aluminum screws. We could get an aluminum nut. Marginally good. The Hobby Lobby spinner, which I really don't like because it doesn't hold up well to electric starters, especially on a 90, is the lightest. But for only 3 grams more, a carbon fiber backplate Aero, that's Randy Smith's spinner. When it's got the carbon fiber backplate, it comes in at around 24. So, the other thing I did when I pulled the prop off, I wasn't really sure. It sounded like it was vibrating toward the end of the flight. I took the prop off, went over and rebalanced it, and it was out by quite a bit. And what I suspect has happened is the paint has gassed off. I don't know how many days, but it's been a few days. I really had to take almost all the paint off of one blade to get it to balance again. Anyway, just a little maintenance. Now while I have it apart, I'll do the usual things. Check all the screws. I'm going to take the cowling off, look inside, make sure everything's tight. So far we have never had a loose screw, but I want to keep it that way. That's the whole objective, is by doing more and more of this checking. If there is a component part that's going to be the weak thing, I want to catch it right now. I want the option of using all these spinners, so each one I'm using as a self-contained unit. Now when I put this one on, with the carbon backplate, one of the problems that I have is it doesn't, of course, each one of the backplates lines up differently. In fact, this gets to be a nuisance. Now what I really should do is make different, if I really decide I'm going to use this, I'm going to take the Sato thrust washer and make a thin thrust washer, but for right now, I want to fill that gap with a piece of balsa wood, and then just paint it with a little bit of Brodak black dope. All I really need is the ring around the edge. Now the next session we have, we're going to test this, and if this works out well, I'll make a mold for this carbon fiber backplate. See how thick it has to be? I just want to see if that's going to be appropriate. Actually, I can use this for a plug then. And if I wanted to, I could put this in a lathe and get it really true, but for right now, that'll be good enough for a test, and hopefully we'll get some flying in tomorrow. Lighter weight spinner. First thing I want to do is I have a 14.4 rev up. I want to get a baseline flight. Try to get some of these on video. Rich is here, but after his close encounter with the geese yesterday, he's getting a little gun shy. Every time he hears a goose, he goes into level flight. Top we want to check. What I wish they made, and they don't, is a 15.4. And I could cut it down, but I've done a little pitching on it. I've kind of de-pitched it. Thinned out the hub. But again, as always, we get a square one flight. It looks like we have a good camera angle today for a change. And we'll get to run the Aero spinner with the carbon backplate. See if we like it with the little bit of nose weight out. It's about a ½ ounce lighter than the plastic one. Short lesson, and the lesson clearly is, at least in our setup here, we're going to pull the pins out of that the propping. It looks like it's putting a stressorizer right down the middle of the prop. What happened here is on starting up the motor, and by the way, I don't think these are real good for 91s. You can see how it just tore that right apart. The backplate looks okay. Well, not really. And the prop sure isn't. Anyway, what it's forced us to do, we now have to use, because that's the last of the spinners that we have, we now have to use and by the way, that's a good safety. I'm going to pull those pins out, tell Bob Zambelli that, well, we tried, but it certainly looks like that. John Grigsby warned me about this, and I wasn't sure. I said, yeah, because I had done this with Tiger 60s before, but obviously on kickback, A 91 is not a 60. That's always the lesson to learn, and boy, that's a valuable lesson. So we're going to go back to having just crushing the props and using the plastic spinners from this point on. This setup is you can just throttle it to whatever prop happens to be on the plane. What really looks like it needs, though, it still looks like it needs a full 15-inch prop to really load the engine right. Otherwise, it's really throttled back a bit too much.
Well, there's the lesson of the day. Hard-fought lesson, and I want to thank John Grigsby for telling me about that before it happened. Maybe I should have a little more faith in John's ideas. Anyway, I had done this on Tiger 60s. Believe me, we will not be doing it with any more 91s. Probably the 72 would be fine. And what I did, on the way back from the field, I picked up some more. These Dubro spinners, I've already busted one, and they seem to wear out real quick, so I need to get a supply of them, if you know what I mean. Have a few spares and whatever. I also, from this session, I really was concerned about, the plane responded very nicely to having a little bit less nose weight, so I'm going to be looking around at maybe moving the CG back. You know, when you want to move the CG back, there's two possibilities here. You can move, and this is very easy to do, fly without the spinner. See that's what you want. You've got more turn. Now you know that's what you want. Now you can add solder to the tail wheel, let's say, to balance it out when you put the spinner back on. I found that that's not really the most productive way of doing it. The most productive way is to get weight out of the front. But one of the things we could do is we could just use a 2-inch spinner. I have plenty of them. I mean, once we're done with appearance judging at the Nats, we can put a 2-inch spinner on there. That'll probably get rid of about the same amount of weight. And it's a shame that the aluminum spinners just don't hold up to the electric starters. When they backfire, it tears that aluminum right in half. You've seen that? It's like opening up a tuna fish can. So anyway, we did learn a valuable lesson, and I want to pass that on so nobody gets hurt or has any more. That's the whole objective of the videos, is try to find things that when one person makes the mistake, that everybody can learn from it. It was nice to hear that Al Rabe has a Sato 72, and he's planning on doing some experiments with it. We hope he has good luck, of course. The biggest thing I've found about so far with the 91 anyway, and the 72 is probably not a lot different, that it's not real sensitive to props. Now, we've been going back, these props have significant load differences. You can see this is a 15, the 14s. We've really resigned ourselves to two things. The plane needs to have a bigger than 14 and a smaller than 15, so we're probably going to hand carve some props, and maybe I'll show that up on a tape. Over the years, I found a really tricky way of making some low-pitch props out of high-pitch props. It takes a little bit of handiwork, but I think in this case, because these props, until we get the APCs and until we get the EAT, now EAT, you can look that up on the internet. They make hand-carved props in England. We don't have any yet, though. But in the meantime, I have a bunch of 15.6s, and what I want to do is try to take one of them and turn it into a really a 15.4, and that's a little bit tricky. I'm going to show how I do it. Again, if you're not handy with props, this is not a good idea. This is something for more experienced modelers for sure. Do, because it's an appropriate time in the trimming of this plane. Put some of the little things that you can use basically on any plane to help you understand how to get the most out of props. Now, the first thing I'll mention is I haven't ever been able to find a course in any of the colleges, and I've been to college for 4 years. I've never found a course on developing props for control line stunt planes. To get that out of the way, because one of the things a lot of people think is, that to understand about control line stunt props, that you would find this course in college, and if it exists, I haven't found it. Of course, if you're an aircraft engineer, you work for Boeing, various other, you'd have a lot better chance than a guy who's a farmer. Well, I'm a farmer. But anyway, no courses. So I'm trying to put this together for the simple reason that if I can pass on some basic information that I've learned, it'll be like having a course. It'll be almost like having a little course, and I'm sure the amount that I can get onto a video will pay dividends far beyond the cost of the video. The most basic, I guess, when you're a kid, you always think, well, a propeller's blowing air like a fan, and you have this idea that it's pushing itself through the air, when in essence it's pulling itself through the air. It's really the most basic information, how a propeller works. It's like a wing. If you think of a propeller as a wing, it's real easy to figure this out. The air that travels on the flat side of the prop travels a shorter distance than the air that travels over the airfoil section, exactly the same as a wing. And by doing so, it creates a low pressure zone. Not sure if there's two S's in pressure. It doesn't matter, because what it's doing in essence, it's pulling. A propeller pulls, it doesn't push. So understanding this, now you have a little bit of a, and I hope I'm certainly not a college professor, but I'm trying to lay this out in a way that makes sense to me. So you understand that this is creating a propeller blade. One blade is creating a low pressure zone. Not a roundel, that's to show how a prop creates a disc area. Physical disc area. And what you'll notice if you do a calculation is, let's pretend this is a 10-inch prop. And I'm just making a silly analogy here. A 10-inch prop. We go to an 11-inch prop, and what happens? We have not gone up 10%. We've gone up an amount that probably Bill Netzband or Dave Downey or Joe Adamusco could figure out, but it's a significantly bigger disc area. Just look in your own mind, look at how much bigger the area, the physical area of pulling gets with a disc area. Now, when you go to extremes, and this is what we're trying to do with the Sato 91, the reason we're using a 91 instead of a 72 or a 56 at this time is to try to push this to the limit and see where the limit is. We don't know where it is. Maybe we're already past it and we don't even know. But as you create this disc area, every time you can increase even a little bit, you've increased it a bigger amount than the amount of adding to the blade length. You've added to it a significantly more, I don't know what the exact formula is. It doesn't matter. I know it exists. I don't have to be. See, this is the point. If you get caught up in formulas and a lot of times you're in the forest, you see all these trees and you miss the big tree. Well, I know that more disc area almost always has one big effect: vertical tension. What happens? I have to answer the phone. Hang on. We're on 1,000 phone calls today. The point is, when you have a prop, you always have a prop that gets through the whole stunt pattern, basically right up to the point where you have to go above 45 degrees. And then the requirements of the prop dramatically change, especially on some setups that can be rather peaky and finicky. Now, here's what typically happens is everything under 45 degrees, hell, you could do with a 10-6 prop. That's really so easy that it's ridiculous. But what happens is, now you get, and maybe even the square 8, maybe I'm leaving out the square 8, I don't know, but then you go vertical. Soon as you go vertical, the plane starts getting wimpy coming in at you, and there's all kind of ways to try to trim it out. Same thing, the hourglass, you lose the corner, it starts free flighting. Well, and the overhead 8, in fact, I would even go so far as to say, with some planes, if you didn't have to do the overhead 8, the whole prop would change. The overhead 8 is the controlling factor, because you've got to have power going through the overhead 8. And certainly some of these places, if you look at some of the flyers, and some of them are very good at it, I'm not. And that is running back during all these maneuvers, that they're always backpedaling like they're on roller skates. I find that very distracting. So I try to trim the planes, and especially the prop, for really, really excellent tension above 45. Now, if you looked at the power curves of some engines, just to make an example that would be very obvious, the higher performance an engine is, the more power it puts out when it's a given size, the peakier and narrower the power band gets. What happens as you drop the port timing or the cam timing or whatever, and you get the motor more friendly, the power tends to drop off at the peak and widen up at the bottom. And in the case of 4 cycles, the power curve is very flat. So one of the choices we have here is we're not as critical on getting the last 64th inch of prop pitch or something. We're not as critical as we would be if we had a peakier power curve. The flatter you could make the power curve, the wider of a range a prop will work in. And 4 cycles tend to have this big, wide, flat power curve. So it's very easy to get a prop to work real well. I'm going to simplify, because let's say you start with a given engine. Let's pretend you start, so something we all can relate to, a Fox 35. You take a Fox 35, you're not sure what prop to put on.
So you go out to the store, you buy an 11.6, a 10.6, and a 9.6. Well, the first thing you do is you put the 11.6 on. It's too big. How do you know it's too big? You run the motor in level flight, adjust the needle valve, put a tack on it. Point the nose up. The motor should gain 3 to 4, 5, maybe even more RPM, depending if it's a high-performance engine. If you point the nose up and the motor goes down in RPM, or basically stays the same, you've overloaded the engine. So the first thing to identify is, see, we're trying to, like a doctor, you're trying to identify the things you can do to make your setup, whatever motor you're running, it doesn't matter. Well, how to make that better? On a plane that has too big of a propeller, typically, what happens? A nobler with a 12.6, you lose some of your corner. Now, the formula for figuring this out takes into account a lot of things that it's really not appropriate to go into here. I don't want to make this too confusing because I want people to pick up good information. I get calls every day. How do you do this? How do you pitch carbon? This could go in forever. But if you looking to have a basic understanding of what's happening, the motor would sag, and you would fly the plane, and you would lose some corner. It would get sluggish in the corners. Another thing that comes into play, when you're overloading a motor with a prop that's too big, you're going to get a short motor life. First one of all, especially in hot days, you're going to experience overheating of the motor, along with a short motor life. So you want to be, this is a part of it you need to go back and forth on. And when I say back and forth, I want to use a really good analogy. And this is what I've always told people I thought is a way to think about propellers. Pretend that you're getting out of high school, and here comes the first girl you've ever seen in your whole life. Here she comes. And the first thing you do, you go out with her and marry her. Well, yes, that definitely can work. And there's no reason to make believe that would be a horrible, awful thing. But it really stacks the deck against you. And what I'm suggesting is propellers are the same way. If you took your first plane, let's pretend you made a PA-61 plane, you put a carbon fiber 2-blade on it, and right away, bingo, that's the only prop you ever tried on a plane. Well, your performance would definitely be limited to some degree. And even though you might have acceptable performance, you'd never have exceptional performance. Where you get exceptional performance is when you can try 2 blades, 4 blades, big giant props, little tiny props, 3 blades, Wendy's old props, Rich's old props, a couple that we carved up, hand carved like we want to do today, some old props that you had laying around. And what happens? You build a database. And you can build it on paper or you can build it in your mind. But then, once you've tried all these, you can evaluate what the plus and minus factors are. Now, we know the minus factors of a prop being too big. So what would happen if this was the first prop you put on a plane and it was too big? Boy, that'd be pretty disappointing. This way of trying every prop that's suitable for that. Now let me just quickly put on what some of the symptoms would be if a prop were too small. So you can kind of, if you have a bunch of props, you got to try to figure out which ones are too big, which ones are too small, before you get to the end where you have a prop that you're real happy with. And in our case, once we find that prop, one of two things will happen. We either want to be able to buy them in mass. In the case of APC, he'll cut us a mold. Or, in our own case, if it's a carbon fiber prop, we'll make our own mold, and then we can replicate that prop as many times as we need to. And if it's a wood prop and we can buy them, we'll just buy a couple dozen. The symptom of flying a plane where the prop is too small. Let's use a good analogy, a Fox 35 with a 7-inch prop. You're going to have some pretty wimpy line tension. Probably going to be places, especially coming downhill, where the motor's going to over-rev, and even possibly, in the case of some engines, damaging the engine. Use the word overcooling for, it's not the exact word, but what happens when you're not loading a motor enough and it's just lumbering along, what happens, it tends to overcool, and if you're using a fuel that doesn't take that into account, you can wind up gumming up the ring, hurting other parts of the engine, or in the case of a 4-cycle engine, you can gum up the exhaust valve and get it to stick.
in which case you have to pull the engine apart and get rid of the gum or the carbon. So the symptoms of the prop being too big or too small, as long as you have some idea what that's like, you have a good chance on improving whatever setup you have on whatever plane you're flying. I have an oversimplification, but when you're trimming a new plane like we are now, we're in the early stages of trimming, what we like to do is get the prop right first, because the prop is going to control so many other things. It's going to control the lap speed, it's going to control the vertical tension, it's going to control the acceleration uphill and the deceleration downhill. It's so many things can be adjusted or changed with the prop that to get the prop right off the bat, to me that's the number one thing. We're still in the process of doing it. And the reason I put flight after flight on the video is so you can see what I'm going through. I'm not just talking this stuff. A lot of people, they talk like they do thousands of these changes and they wind out they never do them. Well, we really do, and I have literally hundreds of props that at some point in time I've cut, sanded, shaped, changed, got to work, or abandoned. Okay, but that's the first thing, and I think we're closing in by this weekend. Possibly we'll have settled on one or two choices of prop, but that's the first part of it. The problem was in the beginning of this plane, the wing was relatively level. We never experienced a wing up or down dramatically, and the horizontal CG, and believe me, this is luck. This is nothing but luck. I don't care if you do spreadsheets until you're buried in spreadsheets. Nothing beats being lucky. The one thing we didn't have real close on this was the vertical CG. And what I did with the vertical CG, I did it off camera yesterday. In fact, I forgot to put it on the video. We were just a little bit light on the bottom of the plane, and I had 2.5-inch wheels. I put on 2 3/4-inch wheels, and the vertical CG was perfect. So I've got the horizontal CG and the vertical CG both real close right now. And what I hope to do from this point on is just fine-tune other aspects of it, like the handle. We'd already got 2 handles working. We have 2 sets of lines. But props. If there's one thing on the plane, if I could go over to all my competitors at a contest and put the wrong prop on their plane, I could pick the wrong prop, but I would have the right prop on my plane. I'd win every contest. The trouble is they're just as smart as I am. Maybe they're even smarter. Maybe they're a lot smarter. I don't know. But anyway, the big point is a prop is a tremendous. There's been planes that people have told me they're untrimmable. This is no tension, no this, no that, no that. And I've basically done very simple things with the propeller and with the handle, and almost every plane can be made to work within some boundaries relatively well. But if you have these clues, when the prop's too big, the prop's too small, you're overloading the motor, overheating. If you have that understanding, you're going to have such an advantage over your competition. And it's not that difficult. It's basic understanding. Sadly, it's not available in any college that I know. Last thing before we move on. The thing to understand about propellers too is if everything else didn't count and you just needed efficiency, everybody in the world would fly a one-bladed prop. In fact, most people in the speed events where they really do need the most efficiency, well, the one-bladed props seem to dominate. Right down the line, though, in other events where other things come into it, there are other factors. 2-blade props are the most efficient. They're more efficient than 3 blades, which are more efficient than 4 blades, which are more efficient than 5 blades. Now, there's a lot of reasons for this. They're all very scientific, and you don't need to understand any of them. But what you do need to understand, if you have a plane that's underpowered, let's say you build a 70-ounce plane with a 40, what you're probably going to be real happy with is a 2-bladed prop. If you build a 50-ounce plane with a 60, you can use multiple blades to kind of soften everything. There's a lot of advantages, and there's certainly times and places where, say, for instance, on a Typhoon, you'd want a scale 4-bladed prop. That'd be real nice. But when it comes to efficiency, a Nobler that weighs 50 ounces, 2-bladed prop. Efficiency comes from less and less blades.
The 5-bladed props, even on the ones that I made, they have a lot of good characteristics, but one of them they don't have is that they're very efficient. Anyway, I hope that's a good little basic understanding, and I hope that it'll help everybody, and that then you can then help other people fine-tune their props in. One of the things I wanted to try to do, I got these from Finley's Hobbies. You can see this is a nice sea-grain one. In fact, this one has some nice wood in it. Anyway, I got a half a dozen or so of them. They're 15/6s. Now, I know the 6-pitch part of this is not going to be any good. I've already run one on the plane, and it runs way too fast. I have to run the plane at a 3rd throttle to get it to run the speed I want. But I'm looking at one of the choices I have here is I can, and this is not as difficult as it looks. I can make a 5-pitch prop out of this, and the way I'm going to do it, and this is not a trick, but it's a method that I've used in the past, is I kind of look at these blades together. I put them on a spline, and I can see this one has a lot more pitch in it, a really lot more. But what I can do is I can take about 1/8 of an inch off the back of this blade and then connect it. So in essence, I'm going to be lowering this pitch angle up to the new line. It's not that difficult to do, but I wouldn't go any more, say, than 1/8 of an inch. This is on the trailing edge of the prop. Remember, rev-ups tend to have less pitch than zingers. It's on the trailing edge of the prop. I want to lay another piece of tape along this, and that acts as my guide, because I'm going to remove this wood, this 1/8 inch from the trailing edge. So in essence, what I'm doing is using this first piece of tape for a guide. I will wind up with a thinner prop and thin blades, high aspect blades. High aspect meaning that the prop is a lot longer than it is wide, tend to be really, really efficient. But what I'm looking for is that I can take this piece off, and I can go over to my saw and remove that amount of wood. And by the way, not all airfoils are the same. If your zingers are very thick and heavy, it's easy to change the prop on the pitch on a zinger. Relatively difficult to do these. Now, I've never done a 15, but it's worth doing one just to see if it's going to be usable. Because what it would give me is pretty much, when I'm done, well, not exactly. See, I'm not exactly, if you can look, I won't be exact, I'll be a little less. But it won't really be a 15 either. It'll be a thin blade 15. You see the piece that I've removed, and what I wound up with here, because this is going to be all hand carving and hand sanding. Now what I always do is make a mirror image of the hub with the belt sander. We've done that already. But now see, I have a 14.5 blade roughly. Of course, it's got too much pitch, but I have the size, except I've made it a 15 inch instead of a 14 inch. And it's a relatively narrower, higher aspect blade. But that's not the important part. The important part is the pitch, because we're going to sand from this side of the face toward this high edge. And in essence, this is going to change the pitch of the prop, hopefully get it down to about we hope a 5. To show what I'm trying to accomplish here, because this is a lot of hand carving and sanding. What I've done is take 1/8 inch off the trailing edge, gotten rid of that material. So in essence, what's happened, this used to be, if we ran it on a Prather pitch gauge, this was our pitch, and that's the industry standard, the Prather gauge. But what we've done now is kind of tricky. Now we've got a new reference line to work with, and what we're going to try to do is, with a sanding block, connect these two dots. I think you can pretty much figure out that what we also could do is make props with more pitch by just reversing this. So once this material is sanded away, you can see the pitch angle has changed from what we hope is going to be a 6 to a 5. Now, whether we're going to really be able to do this efficiently, I don't know. But it's worth, these props are $8 each, it's worth $8 to see. Now, if we wind up getting the killer crop of the century, then we'll send it off to APC, or in the case of we could make a carbon fiber mold, we had a lot of choices. Or we could just hand carve more. You see how thick the material? Now, I don't want to take a lot around the hub. Let me get this stuff out of here. What I want to do is kind of get my sanding block working always up to the top edge. You can see how much material. I can make a significant change here. Just by taking material. Nothing comes off the front. Everything is going to come off the back with a sanding block. Narrowed the hub to match a 14.5 hub, taking that material off there, and now I just need to get a sanding block, rough paper first, and start getting that flat, a nice transition out to that side. Use, this is 80 grit paper or something, and I want to maintain that flat. This is like pretty much a Clark white airfoil. I have been unable to find any real 15-inch low-pitch crops. That's where we're trying to go. We have the ones from EAT coming. That company's in England, by the way, and you can look them up on the internet. But we've got an amount of pitch taken out of this already. And of course the next step is to do the same thing to this blade and get it balanced. But that gives you some idea. If you did a 10-6, you could make thin blade 10-6s, make them 10-5.5. You see, usually the smaller props you can buy. We're in a size range where, as we always are, we're always in an ocean that nobody's crossed yet. And a lot of this stuff isn't available. We're going to have to hand make it before we're done. Today's mail, we got our little muffler back now. To show you, and we've been having mechanical failures in any development project. There's going to be mechanical failures. Bob Zambelli made this, and of course the end caps, even though they were done the same way a two-cycle muffler is done, they were not reliable, and the front piece came out. So what we've done is, or Bob did, is put some little set screws in, I think they're 256s, and put the pressure fitting in the back. We want to try this just as a test. In the future we'll have them with the option of having the pressure fitting in either place. But the significant part here is this is about 3/4 of an ounce lighter than the stock exhaust system. And on the final one, I'd like to have, Bob's making another one, this angled back just a little bit. But that's the only way I know of to do this testing, is just go out and do it. There's another way to lighten up a 4-stroke package, even a 72 or a 56. You can knock 3/4 of an ounce off right there. You might want to make note of this address if you're going to be doing a Zetron. We're ready to fit up our spare batteries and maybe next week start our little Zetron program in the Typhoon. Notice that they have a toll-free number, which is real nice. And the people that I've spoken to and the people that I've dealt with have been really nice. And very quick, 3 days later, you have your batteries. Now these I have to make up. I want to have spare packs because I don't know. I really don't know. Actually, in flying tradition, we've never had the batteries go dead on a Zetron day. But that doesn't mean that as the summer wears on or as we use these, I just wanted to have a couple of spares when we go to the Nats with the Brodex. A second supply of Sato engines. So if you're looking for one, be sure to call Wendy for the best price in town. I have some 30s in stock, and by the way, that's the motor that's going into, I hope it's going to wind up going into B25. Musco and I try to get up early with the birds, try to get some of the air before the air goes bad, as it can do. Every time I pass the airport here, I look at the flags. It's a pretty good indication we might have a good day. It's supposed to rain, but it's always a good day being with Joe. I'll be seeing you. Whoa! Oh, God almighty, this is awesome. Joe.
We need a little weight or something.
Yeah, look at the rock.
How about them videos?
I want you to see, this is a historic moment. This is the first unveiling of Joe and I are here. The sun isn't even up yet. And I'm getting my first look at
Dave Downey's first full-scale replication of the B-25 drawings. Oh my God, yeah, stand back, baby, stand back. Oh yeah. So what'd you guys do? You put them up on a wall and you were playing control line stuff or what? Oh man, does this look awesome.
But this is nearly scale. The only thing that's not scale, Wendy, is the width of the fuselage, the width of the airfoil, obviously.
The airfoil, okay.
Well, and then the fact that the wing is down a little lower in the fuselage.
Right, exactly.
Everything.
Now, does he think the lead-outs can come out the bottom of the wing, or?
I'll show you on this next one. Here. Grab that video. Let's just sort.
I'm impressed already. Let's go build it.
I think you're the only guy in the world that can do this right.
No, come on, give me a break. Oh God! Hey, I got to tell you something even better. I was playing with the Z-Tron all day yesterday. I'm getting good at it. I can do 8s now without thinking about giving it the power and stuff. Oh man!
This would be the center of the wing.
Yeah.
The lead
okay.
Drop down right if you wanted to.
Right. Yeah.
And then out here you'd have like a little thing.
And you know what? That little thing coming out the bottom will make it very adjustable. You can really dial it in. Look at the prop, the physical disc area on the prop.
See, he's got two different sizes. One
Holy mackerel.
And then the bigger would be for the 50s.
This is incredible. Wow.
700 inches. Look at the flaps.
And it is almost scale. Yeah, it's got to have big flaps. High aspect. Oh, Joe, this is going to be awesome. I'm ready to go build.
Look at this. Check out cross sections on the...
Oh, there goes Jacobone. Ah, always late, and I guarantee he doesn't have coffee.
BB.
Yeah.
Scaled down the machine gun blisters on the side of the BB section.
Oh, I'm going to make a mold for all this stuff. Everything's going to be carbon fiber. And that little thing in the tail, the Gunners thing,
yeah.
I'll make a carbon fiber mold for that whole piece.
And you even got the scale.
Oh, the side things.
Bar.
Yeah, the scale, yeah. I was watching Al Raby scale that stuff all down. It looked pretty intense. You know, I'm even picturing little spinners, those little aluminum things.
You could fly this in standoff scale, man.
I think you could fly it in scale. As long as they didn't feel the wing, they had a...
Oh, yeah, it's... Well,
I talked to him about the tail thickness, too. He said ½ inch should be fine.
Well, it's ½ inch. He would like to make it airfoil shaped, though.
Well, we'll make one of each. Well, you're making a project like this, money's no object. This is like working for my wife on restoring a house.
Here's something else.
Jesus, this is awesome.
This is what he means.
Holy
See the wing brake?
Yep.
Wing brake.
Yep.
Wing brake to
the
wing
brake is outside the nacelle.
Okay, so he visualizes this, and you know, you gotta concur with it.
Oh, no, this is gonna be...
Wing brake to wing brake with the nacelles is your power unit.
And that...
The tips, the wing comes off from here out,
yep.
From there out.
Yep.
And then that power pod can come off the...
But there's no stress out here. And you can do, you know, you can glass the whole middle of the wing out to the brake. Well, with 1.5 ounce cloth, that thing will be indestructible.
He thinks it ought to be, the whole power section in the center ought to be carbon fiber.
Yeah, that'd be no problem.
Now cells carbon fiber, where you bond the carbon fiber
right.
The cell bonded to the wing.
Yep.
And that, with whatever you wanted to do, I mean, this is probably the best application for the carbon.
That is just incredible. That's the nicest set of drawings I have seen. That is.
Now the wheels are 10% smaller than scale. He even has a position where they would pivot up if you want to do these tracks.
Yeah.
Take these home and just kind of study.
Take them home. You try getting them back. Hey, we better fly before look at Jacobone's playing back there.
He's gassing up.
Yeah, he's gassing up. Let's get a couple of flights in here while the air is nice. Looks like we will get some flying. The air is, as it can be in the morning here, dead. We have a few props to try on the Typhoon, and Joe's got some trim changes to make to his plane, and Rich is out buying us coffee. Believe it or not, he is buying us coffee. I painted up that, the Zinger 14.4 was one of the props that I really liked. Now, I spent the whole day yesterday. I didn't have the camera here at the field, practicing with the Z-Tron, and I really am starting to acclimate to it just a little bit. So sometime next week we'll be putting the Z-Tron. We actually have it in here, we just haven't flown it yet. I was waiting for Sergio to make me a second transmitter, but the first one will work just as well. So in the meantime, by next week we hope to be flying with throttle control. And of course that B25 will have throttle control, no doubt about it. Even if you didn't use the Z-Tron as a throttle control, if you only used it for things like setting the throttles in level flight, or for making sure that both engines shut off at the same time. See, it serves more than one purpose. And what I'm doing, I'm trying to practice on tradition so I don't get too new to it. And then when I feel a little better, obviously, I want to try some of the possibilities with this plane, but the real objective here is to have it ready for the B-25 program. Things I found on mine, when I'm done filling it, then I just tap off the end and then just touch the fuel. So, because you're not filling the carburetor, that's the problem. Oh, then you got a plan. Well, try it. I don't know if this, I never did that. But if all else fails, just prime it. Or put fuel in it, take the nap down. See, if you fill a tank, and once you fill it, just close it off and just touch it. But don't open it or you'll shut it. And then turn it backwards 4 or 5 times and you're just going to leave it to the slaughter. This way, if it's flooded for some reason, it goes out the exhaust. Now, it doesn't sound like it's flooded, so just hit it. It doesn't go private. Yeah, it needs fuel. It's dry. No, put a couple drops. Go right away. So you don't have the carburetor full is what happens. When you fill the tank, what you should do is just pump that just to get gas in the carburetor. Okay, so you get 4. Okay, just prime it again. It's going to eventually suck. Okay, back to it. Yeah. I never did that before, so I don't know. No, it's not sucking. You got no fuel, go ahead. Bumping. Okay, so let's see, wait a minute. Where's the needle? Okay, I know how many clicks I went in. Now just try this thing, turn it. I just want to see if this works. Yeah, fuel's coming out. Okay, put the battery on and see if it goes. I like, even if you don't fill a tank, you can cap that off. Just filling a tank doesn't mean anything. What Joe is trying to do is come up with some new I guess it's not new. It's what some people do is choking by putting your finger over the exhaust pipe. Now I don't do that. I fill a tank, cap off the overflow vent, and then just touch the fuel pump. So a couple of drops goes into the carburetor. It fills the carburetor. And that seems to be, well, works pretty good for me anyway. But I wanted to leave that on because there are people that need to figure out a good starting routine. Okay, you can see we're going through our own air here already. It's early. The Sato 72, a stock 14.5 rev up, totally dead air. Boy, out there looking at this B25 drill, I almost wish it was building season. But I think making up the plug for that fuselage is not going to be as difficult as I think it is. I'm going to try to use Al Raby's method with the formers and somehow either make the plug with wood or with foam. I haven't figured that out yet. But what it'll mean is anybody else that wants to make a B25, we can have the fuselage done for them. Anyway, Joe's first warm-up flight, acclimation flight like I call it. So far I haven't seen any geese, but we've been getting plenty of geese action going on here between flights. Sounds like there's either a big cockroach or a small dog right behind me biting at me here. Tried on Joe's plane. Joe wanted to make the handle a little bit bigger, and he's at the end of the adjustment. But one of the things we did was we're going to try for a flight or two is tape the hinge lines and see if Joe I always like the hinge lines taped, but I'll leave it to him at the end of this flight to make a decision. And if you go to take the tape off, use the John Brodak method. Just heat it with a hairdryer just a little bit. looks like we got the rest of the gang that couldn't shoot straight crew here. You need a hand, Mike? Once a total wreck, now a repaired plane. Super Tiger 60 with a windy pipe. Fato 91. We got some of everything on the field today. It looks like it's going to be a real productive day. Now, this is the motor that's going to Gerald Champ to replace the 80 that used to be, I would say used to be in the Red Baron is the right word. So, Gerald, we're going to break this in for you today while we're flying, Nessie. This isn't the worst thing in the world. I'll put a gallon of fuel through this puppy. I'll get the carburetor adjusted, get it idling real nice. I don't know if you're concerned about that. But basically, when you get it back, other than putting a max plug-in, I haven't found it necessary to put the max plug-in when you break it in. I'll put a gallon of Power Master through there, and while we're flying today, the engine will just be running. We got the stand set up over there. Mike's got it set up. Be ready to run this. It'll be ready to go when you get it. Now, what I've been doing with the 72s, breaking them in on a 13-inch test prop. But because this is a 56, this is the first 56 we're going to break in. We're going to use a 12-inch diameter. It's a 14.5 cut to 12. The reason for that is I don't want to overload the motor while we're getting it broken in. Now the trick is with a Sato, break it in at least the first half hour, 45 minutes, under 4,000 RPM. That's the secret. Learned some significant things about breaking in Satos. First off, you don't want to start the engine when it's brand new like this, full throttle. You don't want to put on a 58 slot. And for sure, you want to double nut this. The 56 looks just like the 72. It comes with a double nut system. Also, I found that you don't have the right metric wrench. It's a 10 that you need. It can be a pain. And that keeps you from flying off and hitting you in the head. See my jug of fuel, Rich? And we also have to make a little gizmo here to open and shut the throttle. I got to get a piece of wire for that. I start with the initial startup, the needle valve open 4 turns, and what will happen about every 5 minutes or so, I'll go in just a little bit. It likes to sit there running rigid, and if you don't want to keep starting it, just leave the battery on. And that's a key thing to getting a Sato broken in.
You gotta watch that stand, because when you
Now let the motor cool off. That's ready for another run. Let it cool off.
rev it,
We're no rush.
it's not moving across.
You gotta watch the stand. It moves around. You need a brick or something underneath it.
Hey, Jimmy! How you doing?
Jimmy!
Time to...
real rich runs on here. And from this point on, I can just refuel it while it's running. I don't have to restart it or run with the battery off. Refuel it, just refuel it while it's still running. We'll give it the last little bit, and that'll basically be ready to send to Gerald at the end of the day. Out of Musco, body English. Now we get to the fun part of the day, flying each other's planes. Mike is flying Joe's Mr. Awesome here. It's turned out to be a relatively nice day. And it's always nice to share the input from flying the models, because you never know. In Mike's case, he flies my red plane tradition a lot. And this is one of the reasons he's moved up the ladder as quickly as he has. In less than a year, he's learned a stunt pattern. Looks like he's having he's actually flown tradition with the same motor and with the same power package. So I think Joe got some footage on that last Typhoon flight. We've been having a good day with that. Anyway, it's just a great day. What else can you say?